Alright everyone, welcome to week 2 of the Commissioner's Corner. This time it is singular commissioner. As you can see, my counterpart Richard Perez, well, he's working, and I work every single day this week. So, we're flying solo today. Is it worth it to start the best player in the league in week 1? That's what one team did today. Howdy fare? Let's find out as we get it going. Alright, here we are. Week 1 officially in the books. Some pretty amazing performances, some pretty lackluster performance, some huge shocks. Pretty exciting overall. We had 27 games because we have 54 teams, obviously. All of the games were intra-conference, thus they were not playing each other inside of their own conferences. We squared one conference off against another. We'll see how that went here in a minute. But right now, I want to talk about the top 10. Now, this is something that we kind of did for the first couple weeks last year. It was separate as the top 25. No real rhyme or reason to it. This time we actually have a formula. It's complicated. I'd tell you about it, but probably bore you to death. So, long story short, here's the top 10 in descending order, okay? So, coming in at number 10 after 1 week is Saucy Dog, who's, we sat here and talked last week. I think both of us predicted Saucy Dog to potentially win their division. He came in, he scored 71 points and also won their game, obviously. He didn't really use any significant players. He did use the Kansas City Chiefs, who scored them 24 points. Brilliantly played, my friend, over at the Saucy Dog. So he's still rolling. He's got basically used nobody to score 71 points. Coming in, there's a three-way tie for number 9, 8, 7, however you want to call it, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. That would be the Broskis with 72 points. They used Victor Cruz. They got murdered by Calvin Johnson. They did use him. He scored them an astounding 1 point. That was kind of a waste, unfortunately. But he still did score 72 points and defeated his opponent, so that's a win for him. The Potterville Pussycats scored 72 points as well and didn't really use anybody. No one worth noting on here, so good job to you. And then also, Beast Mode, Ryan Allen's team, he scored 72 points. His most important player used was Jason Witten. Now, Jason Witten, some would say he's upper echelon tight end. I mean, he almost has to be. Some would argue that he's not, though. So, no enormous use from any of those teams. Yeah, I'm actually doing a top 9, sorry. I don't know what happened to the 10th team. So then we have the Detroit Fat Boys. Larry Weinberg was in the IFSC, which is our other fantasy league, for many years, a long time ago. Hasn't been in it for quite some time, but he did come into the Survivor League, and he came back with a vengeance. The Detroit Fat Boys scored 76 points, putting them good at number 5 for the current season. He used some big players, though. He used Julio Jones, he used Jamal Charles, and he also used Darren McFadden. Darren McFadden, you could say, is not even close to elite because of the team he's on, but still, it's worth noting that he used him. And then we have number 4, a person that I predicted to win their division would be the Carp Carnival King. Scored 81 points, didn't really use anybody significant either. I will have you say that, I guess he technically used Roddy White, which totally boned him because he scored 0 points, although it was pretty much no knowledge that the dude was injured. So he didn't really play to his full performance. So I'm not sure about that start there, Carp Carnival King, but whatever. Coming in at number 3, and I didn't bring my tablet, so I'm not even sure whose team this is, but the New Orleans Chuck Rocks scored 82 points this week. Great job. They used A.J. Green as well as Tom Brady, so that's 2 potential marquee players off the board for them. But still, if you're going to use him, get a high score like 82 points. Don't get screwed like the Broskis and using Calvin Johnson and getting 1 point from them. Number 2, also, forgive me, I don't know who this is either, but the Lions comes in scoring an astounding 89 points in week 1. They also use A.J. Green, who, based on last week and potentially, last year, I honestly think that he's definitely the number 2 receiver. And realistically, he could challenge Calvin Johnson for the number 1 spot. So using A.J. Green early, well, we'll come back to him, we know. He also used Jason Witten as a tight end, so 2 pretty good players there used by him. And then we get to the Kandarian Demon Moose, who are now currently the number 1 team in the nation. They scored 99 points in week 1. Now, if you check the website on Monday, I did have a little article on there as where that ranks historically as the greatest performances ever. It is actually the 3rd highest scoring week ever for any team. And to start off the season with a high score like that is pretty awesome. What did it cost him? Well, he did use Adrian Peterson in week 1. Questionable move, although he was playing the Lions. And now again, I'm a huge Lions fan. I can understand starting him there. But realistically, if you take out that one huge run, the Lions really bottled him up. He got a couple scrap touchdowns at the end. But hey, kudos to you, Matt. I mean, he scored 23 points, I believe, for you. If you're going to use him, you might as well have him perform. Matt also used Jamal Charles, which is, a first-round running back for most people in most leagues. Larry Fitzgerald, meh. He looks like he might be back to his monster self now that he actually has a quarterback to throw to him. And he also used Demaryius Thomas, who's, pretty high-end receiver. So he used 2 better-than-average running backs, 2 really good receivers. I mean, it paid off, 99 points. If you don't have them later in the year, maybe you'll lose some games, but that 99 points will never get stricken from the record. So that's how that works, top 10. Or top 9, I guess, technically. Whoops. Great job by all you teams. Now, the other thing we did is we broke up the conferences. There's 6 conferences, we basically I actually ranked all these teams from 1 to 54, actually, and gave each one a point value, yada, yada, yada. It's nerdy stuff. Ultimately, though, we have a formula that breaks down the toughest divisions, okay? Who did the best, who did the worst in week 1. The Brody Bruce Conference, definitely number 1, even though the 2 best teams are not in that conference. And that would be Candiria and DeWyans. But Brody Bruce Conference does have the New Orleans Chuck Rocks as well as the Carp Carnival King, which is number 3 and 4. So that's pretty impressive. Their bottom end team is Texas Taco Benders, who is the defending champion. So they were in last place in that conference, and that's pretty stacked, honestly. They went 7-3 this week. So if you're in that conference, I guess congratulations, but it's pretty rough standing, honestly. The second best conference was the Ron Burgundy Conference. They went 5-4 this week, which is the second best, which makes sense. That's why that'd be second best. But also they have the 2 best teams in the league statistically, Candiria Demon Moose and DeWyans, both in that conference. Also, Beast Mode, who as we know is ranked number 6 in the league, also in that conference. Now, why are they not higher? A, they didn't win as many games, obviously. And B, they also have 2 of the worst teams in the league. And the California Coyotes had high expectations going in for them. It is only 1 week, and it is out of conference play, so it's not a huge deal. And also the Ypsilanti Pipsqueaks, who we'll talk about them in a minute. Not a great return for Aaron Seagraves to the league. The next highest conference we would say would be the Jeff Spicoli Conference. They went 4-5 this week, with a great performance by Potterville Pussycats, who find themselves in the top 10, top 9, whatever you want to call it. Also, the Saucy Dog Team 2, please change your name. I don't like calling things Team 2. They did very well, as did the Squadrels, formerly the Ransom Ragamuffins. Good performances there. Team Denbrock at the bottom there, not quite. He's at the bottom 3rd here. Also, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, a defending conference winner last month. Did not do very well. But ultimately, the worst team is also in this conference. Magic Mike played. What happened? We'll talk about that in a minute. Gonna move through this quick now. The Derek Zoolander Conference went 4-5. The best performance is Saucy Dog Team 1. Excellent job. So he actually has 2 excellent teams. Phenomenal job there, Saucy. The Jeff Lebowski Conference went 4-5, but they have 2 of the best teams in the league. Fat Boys and the Broskis, both in that same conference. Nasty Nutria, honorable mention. They scored some pretty decent points this last week, sorry. Then they also have, though, and keep in mind, this is the conference that did not have any legitimate playoff teams last year. They have some real bottom feeders as well. The Moose Knuckles, It's On Like Indomikong, Tallahassee Thundercats, and Brandon Roy's Knees, 4 of the worst teams in the league, all in this conference. So, I don't know, 4-5. It is what it is, I guess. The Kirk Lazarus Conference is the one that got smoked the worst. They went 3-6 this past week. They have Troy pulling out on you and Derp, two okay teams there, no real bottom feeders in this conference. Just that they just had bad matchups. They went 3-6 as a conference this week, so that's pretty rough. So now we're going to move on to the top started players, and this is something that I predicted. If you watched the Commissioner's Corner Week 1, the kickoff special, Andrew Luck, sure enough, was the most started quarterback or player in the league in general. 23 people started him this week, which, I predicted. Hey, I'm the son of Square so I guess you should expect it. But he actually had 18 points, so it was a brilliant start for whoever started him, which is more than half of the league, actually. So good job there. Second most started player this week was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, started by 19 people this week. Of course, they were playing the lowly Jets, who everyone predicts to be just awful. And, oh man, if you saw the final play of that game, or the next to last play in that game, what a bunch of morons. Geno Smith, they were driving, Geno Smith runs out of bounds, basically time's up, and some moron hits him out of bounds, late hit, 15-yard penalty, puts him in field goal range, boom, scores a field goal on him. Ignorant stuff. They scored 9 points, and undoubtedly that field goal actually cut into that a little bit. So 19 people got 9 points. Not a terrible performance, statistically, fantasy-wise. The third highest or most started player this week was David Akers. 14 people started him. A lot of people like to play kickers in domes. A lot of people like to play kickers that play for the Lions. 14 people started him, 6 points. The fourth most started player, and this probably goes hand in hand with a bunch of pairings with Andrew Luck, was Reggie Wayne. Didn't see that one coming. Highest started receiver this week. So far this year, obviously. Reggie Wayne, 10 people started him. He scored 10 points appropriately. And then the fifth highest scoring or started player would be Jamal Charles, which, playing against Jacksonville, I can see that. New look offense with Andy Reid. 8 people started him. He didn't disappoint. 11 points is pretty acceptable for a running back even in our league. Now, again, our scoring list, as you guys will probably find out, our scoring system is kind of brutally low compared to what some of these lunatic scoring systems are. But hey, we've been in this for 24 years. Don't question it. So, yeah, so we know what we're doing here, like it or not. All right, so that's some of the top performers of this week. I do want to go looking forward to next week a little bit, just kind of glancing through. I'm going to try to make this quick, so it's like 20-some minutes long usually. First and foremost, some key matchups. Providence Power, one of my squads, 1-0, keep in mind, will square off against Beast Mode, a.k.a. the number, what team was that? 6 team in the league. That's actually my manager's team, so we got a little, inner workplace drama there. Both 1-0 teams. That's going to be a good game to watch. Also, my other team, and this is no joke, I'm not just saying it because they're my teams, but they're both 1-0. I'm squaring off against the Squadrils, both 1-0 teams, so we'll see how that goes. Hey, I'm 1-0 on both teams. I can't complain. 2 other matchups worth noting out in Week 2, if I have to point them out. We haven't really fleshed out who the best teams are yet, other than this system, so there's a lot of 1-0 teams going against each other. There's also some teams like this. Nasty Nutria, Sag Nasty Notch Above Top Notches. Statistically, not the best matchup, but it's brother versus sister action. You can't get any better than that. Week 2, brother versus sister, Ben versus Sarah. Who's going to win? I don't know who I'm rooting for in this one. I'd have to look and see some implications on that. And then the final matchup to look for is, shockingly, the Kazoo Crazies, who set a record last year for most points in a year. They lost this week. They're taking on Magic Mike, who both of these teams are 0-1. Magic Mike was 10-2 last year, had the best record overall, and he scored 31 points this week. So, I don't know what happened there. Maybe he's off the performance-enhancing drugs. Maybe. I don't know. And speaking of Magic Mike, let's bring us to the wrap-up here. The last thing we're going to talk about every week is what is known as the cellar dwellers. Yes, the cellar dwellers. These are the people who need to be slapped in the face for being so stupid and starting such a horrible lineup. So, Magic Mike, first and foremost, we already talked about you. 31 points? Come on. Seriously? Seriously, my son could have gotten the computer and put a lineup together and scored more than 31 points. No joke. He would have just looked for teams that look like they're in Minecraft uniforms and played them. Also, Ypsilanti Pipsqueaks. Don't be laughing at Magic Mike because you also scored 31 points this week. So you two collectively suck. And Aaron Seagraves, one of the founding fathers of our fantasy league, the IFSC, hasn't been in fantasy football for, 15 years. But it seems like he's never been in it. He text messaged me and said that he had a winning formula. Well, I don't know, Will Hunting. I don't think it's working. And then finally we have the third lowest, the third worst team technically, second in terms of points because those two losers tied. Brandon Roy's knees. You're performing like him. Let's put it that way. 33 points. I saw him tweeting that so and so are going to carry him all year long or whatever, which is interesting. Maybe he's talking about his regular team and not this team because guess who was carrying him this week? Ryan Tannehill. What? You do realize the object is to score points, correct? Ryan Tannehill, probably safe to say, he will be the only time, that'll be the only time he will start, even maybe for his own NFL team, but certainly for a Michigan Ultimate Survivor League franchise. What are you thinking? I understand that, hey, I don't want to use all the best players in week 1. I want to save them towards the middle of the year, maybe even the playoffs. But Ryan Tannehill? Are you kidding me? You telling me you can't find 11 quarterbacks better than this guy? Ugh, sickening. Welcome to the Ultimate Survivor League, boys. Hopefully you guys had a good time this week. Next week's going to be a little bit different. You're going to get you got one game under your belt. Hopefully you can build off this. Hopefully nobody starts Ryan Tannehill next week. I know one team that won't anyway. So will people try to copy Matt's success? Will they actually use AP? Probably not when he's playing against the Bears defense, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. Let's try not to start people who are injured, first and foremost. Let's try not to start people with the last name Tannehill. And also, shout out to Luke Miller, who is kind of the whipping boy of this league, or at least he was until this week, and this guy came in. Luke, I want to hand it to you. You scored like 66 points. You barely lost. That's kind of how your season went last year. You lost a lot of games very close, even when you scored a lot of points. But I'm going to give you my hats off. Salute. Excellent job. Put a better lineup in next week. Maybe luck will follow your way. At least you didn't start Tannehill. Thus, you're off the hook for being the whipping boy. Have a good one. We'll see you next week, guys. Take it easy.